Hello, everybody. Rick Manning here, President of Americans for Limited Government. We have on the Hill right now, actually just ended a press conference featuring a number of Republican members of the House of Representatives calling for the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas, who's the head of the Department of Homeland Security. Mayorkas has a lot of responsibilities, amongst them spying on the American people, determining what should be included on internet sites and what speech should be allowed, what speech shouldn't be allowed, through the CISA organization, disinformation boards. He's got that under his aegis and control. But what he really is supposed to be doing is things like controlling the border. Okay, the Border Patrol and ICE are under him. And the fact of the matter is, he's an abysmal failure. Here's a little snippet of what members of Congress are saying.
In August 2021, I was the first member of Congress to introduce articles of impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas. And now that we have the majority in the House of Representatives, I expect our party to pursue impeachment next Congress. Secretary Mayorkas has committed high crimes and misdemeanors. His conduct is not incompetent, it's not negligent, it is willful and intentional. First, Secretary Mayorkas has failed to maintain operational control of the border as required under the law. So the Secure Fences Act of 2006 requires the Secretary to achieve and maintain operational control of the border. It defines operational control as, quote, the prevention of all unlawful entries into the United States, including entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband, close quote. That is his duty and his obligation. Instead, the policies that he has enacted has produced the exact opposite of operational control.
Let's just go from there, and because I'm sure exactly what he's talking about. What we're looking at. I'm gonna hold on. I need to do something sneaky here. Should have done this beforehand. How dumb of me not to. Blah blah blah. Okay, so I'm gonna share the screen here. So I'm gonna show you this real quick. This is what we should be looking at here, if I've done this properly. Yes. These are numbers that actually show what's happened at our border since Mayorkas became, and since Biden became president. Let's just take a look at some of these numbers. Right here, January of 2020 is the first month that Biden became president, but he was only president for 10 days. So let's move it to February. In February of 2020, we had 36,687 illegal aliens across the border. That's 36,687 illegal aliens. Now that's a lot of illegal aliens. That's a problem. In February of 2022, we had 166,010 illegal aliens. 2021, 101,000. What we're seeing, what you see there is a five-fold increase in the number of illegal aliens crossing the border between when Biden took office to similar month, February 2022. When you compare it to September, when you go September 2020 to 2022, you had 57,674 illegal aliens across the border in September of 2020. That's 7-8 months into Biden's term. September 2022, 227,547. Almost 250,000 people came across our border illegally. The total for the fiscal year, which fiscal year in Washington, D.C. talk is October 1 to September 30th. Total for the fiscal year, almost 2.4 million illegal aliens coming into this country illegally in 2022. Now, these are the people who are caught. What this doesn't count are people who got away. The way we measure that is the Border Patrol has cameras all along the border. So they see people going across the border, but they don't have enough people to be able to actually apprehend them all. And so the Border Patrol has estimated that there's this is about 6 months ago, that there were 900,000 getaways. So total over the last 2 years. So what you look at is you say, okay, since we'll just take 2021 and 2022, we'll give Biden the entire 2020 off. You have 1.7 million, 2.3 million, that's 4 million, plus 900,000 getaways is 4.9 million people who've illegally entered this country. That's more than the city of Los Angeles, significantly more than the city of Los Angeles, our second largest city. That's how many illegal aliens have entered this country under Joe Biden. And that's why Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security, who keeps telling us that the border is secure when it's a sieve, it's an actual sieve, and by design, a sieve. That's why Alejandro Mayorkas needs to be impeached. He's failed. If he was attempting to secure the border, he's failed. If he's not attempting to secure the border, which he isn't, then he's not doing his job. And he's failed. He's failing the American public who put him there. And so Congress is right, the House is right to look at articles of impeachment. They're right to hold hearings to find out what the heck's going on at the border. They're right to try to impose Congress's will on this administration to try to enforce border security. But one of the things that flies off of this, and I'm going to step away from the numbers for a second and talk about the trust that Mayorkas has amongst the people who actually are in the Border Patrol. You guys might remember there was an incident a couple years ago, year and a half ago, where Border Patrolmen on horseback were accused by the Biden administration of whipping these Haitian illegal immigrants. So people from Haiti somehow got from Haiti, which is an island, or half of an island anyway, with Dominican Republic, to Mexico, and then walked up through Mexico to come across our border. And so supposedly the Border Patrol were whipping these illegal immigrants coming across our border. That was September 2021. And there was a big spectacle about it. And the Biden administration decided to end horseback, Border Patrol on horseback, which, by the way, a lot of the areas are pretty inaccessible on the border. They're much more accessible on horse than they are by vehicle. Not a lot of roads along some of the parts of the border. But they took this picture and they said they're whipping them. Well, here's the truth. Let's go to the top. Mayorkas knew border agents did not whip migrants before repeating false claims. He knew it was untrue. And yet he allowed the president of the United States to get up and repeat the false claims and then verified them hours later. He knew it wasn't factual. He knew it was a lie. He defamed the very people who were supposed to be protecting us and protecting our border, and allowed them to be scapegoated and with a big lie about them. And he chose not to stand up and say, no, that's not true. He didn't alert the president, hey, this picture doesn't tell that actually isn't what happened. You're misreading the picture. No, there was a crisis that was created by the release of a picture that they was being misinterpreted as being abuse of illegal immigrants by the Border Patrol. And Mayorkas uses an excuse, and the President Biden uses an excuse to attack the very people who are charged with protecting our border. How can people follow someone who is that dishonest? So he's not doing his job. We have border policies that don't protect our border. We have almost 5 million people who have come into this country illegally, including about 1 million of them who we actually don't even know where they are, who they are. We don't have any record of it. We just know they got across the border without us catching them. And guess what? Is it any shock that we got 100,000 families this Christmas were sitting down mourning because one of the plates around the table is empty because of overdose of opioids. Half of those people died of fentanyl. Those are Americans. Fentanyl is being laced into other drugs and killing people. Is an act of war against the American population. And we aren't paying any attention to it. The human tragedy is immense. But Mayorkas doesn't want to close the border, doesn't want to protect Americans from the ravages of fentanyl, doesn't want to stop the cartel's trafficking. Our country was recently named the #1 human trafficking country in the world. Why? Because we are allowing 250,000 people to come across the border every single month, and they're being human trafficked. Many of them are part of a human trafficking network. The cartel who brings them across the border are human traffickers by definition. They are trafficking in humans, and they're putting those people who have entrusted their lives to them. Many are dying or being left by the wayside to die because they're sick or they have no value to the cartel. Their money's been stolen and they're dead. Many are being trafficked into prostitution rings, pornography rings, and the entire seedy underside of the sex trafficking business. And truthfully, many of them are being trafficked into illegal sweatshops and the like doing things, working in sub minimum wage jobs and basically are being housed and trafficked, no different than slave traffic in the past. Mayorkas turns a blind eye to that. He needs to be impeached. And so, Congress, we urge you to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. He was a bad choice to begin with. He's a guy who was plagued by scandal at the Department of Homeland Security under the Obama administration and never, ever, 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 ever should have been trusted with this job as secretary. Shame on those who voted for his confirmation. But this is a gentleman who not only was he a bad choice, he continues to prove he was a bad choice. And so to those Republicans who stood up today and said that he needed to go, and Representative Andy Biggs, I saw him there. I saw Doug Lamalfa there. I saw Debbie Lasko there. I saw Lauren Boebert there. I saw Louis Gohmert there. I saw a number of Republican legislators, members of the House there, standing up and taking a stand. It's time for the House of Representatives to act and send a clear message that Alejandro Mayorkas does not belong as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security by holding an investigation of his tenure, exposing the abuse of power that he's engaged in, exposing the failures of the border, and voting as the House of Representatives to impeach him. I don't have great expectations that the Democrat-controlled Senate will do anything about it. They'll have to hold hearings under the law, but I don't have any great expectations they'll do anything about it. But the fact of the matter is, the American public deserves to know what's happening at our border and the invasion that's occurring at our border at the absolute allowance of our current administration and the person charged with making certain that didn't happen, Alejandro Mayorkas. That's really what I wanted to talk about today. If this is something, I would also encourage you. I did a video yesterday, a pre-taped video on immigration. To recap that, there is a move by Democrats and Republicans, Kyrsten Sinema, who's a former Democrat, and Tom Tillis, who I used to think was a Republican, but from North Carolina. But they have come together to try to create an amnesty bill for 2 million illegal aliens under the guise that they are people who were brought here as children and are now adults. They're doing so under the guise, there's two different kind of disparate reasons they're giving. Number one reason they're giving is we need workers. We need workers. On the other hand, they say these people are not a burden on our society because 91% of them are working. Well, you can't have it both ways. If 91% of them are working, then they don't add to our workforce. So there's that in terms of creating additional workers into our workforce. So so they can't have that both ways. But the other argument that they have is that it's a it's only fair that people, these are young people who have grown up in our country and should be, in fact, allowed to live here legally. The reality is they already have green cards because they're working, and all that the amnesty does is it puts them on a pathway to citizenship, which is the real goal. That's the real goal, is providing a pathway to citizenship to 2 million people who illegally came here. And oh, by the way, if they wanted, there's a way to become a citizen, and that is get in the back of the line. We have lots of people waiting in line to come to this country. And, the people who are here, who were brought here as children, they got a golden ticket by being able to be here, they've got green cards, 91% are working. So they got the golden ticket. But they're in a limbo status, and that's the status they should remain in. We should also background check every single one of those people who say that they want to have DACA. Have they voted? Have they engaged in activities which would disqualify them from citizenship because they violated the terms of they basically broke the law. Not basically, they did break the law in terms of voting or other things. So we need to get our arms around this. But for right now, there's a bill that's attempting to provide amnesty. It's got a little bit of a fig leaf of talking about doing some border security. The bottom line is Alejandro Mayorkas has every single tool at his disposal to do border security. Now he's not doing it. He's refusing to do it. And as a result, putting a few extra things that he could do, giving a couple of extra things that he could do to try to secure the border, it doesn't matter because he won't do them. He won't implement the law. He doesn't implement the law now. Giving him more law to implement does no good when the person who's implementing it is acting at his boss's behest, the president's, but the presidential policy is in direct contravention of the law. And we're either going to have a law, we're either going to have a border, or we're not. And the people who are in charge right now don't believe we should have a border. And as long as that's the case, we're going to see massive illegal trafficking across our border. And we're going to see the harm and the hardship that comes with that, the human despair that comes with that, the rape trees. We're going to see all the things that go with a lawless, open border and what it means, not just to people who live on the border legally, who see their land trampled across or have to clean up the mess every single day, who live in fear of their lives as illegals are tromping across their land and by their homes, threatening their families. Not just the people who actually legitimate U.S. citizens who are living there or U.S. residents who are legally living there being terrorized. But we also see the tragedy of people who are being brought across, who are 9, 10-year-old children, who are being abandoned, who are being abused, who are being trafficked. Those are human tragedies that are preventable. And they're preventable by actually doing your job as the head of Department of Homeland Security. He refuses to. He needs to be impeached. With that, I thank you for paying attention and thank you for being with me. And I look forward to our next broadcast. This is Rick Manning signing off, President of Americans for Limited Government. Let's see if I can get this to do. Boom.